Hello, ladies and gentlemen, the Army of Otters here, and welcome to Unexplored Skyrim. Today we have a very special video. We will be taking an in-depth look at Whiterun. Now, the purpose of these videos are to explore locations throughout Skyrim and try and find things that players might miss, some hidden details, interesting facts, kind of interesting loot, or that kind of stuff. Now, for Whiterun, it was a kind of difficult to figure out how to cover it, so I decided we would go ahead and do a very in-depth look. We'll be looking at interesting quests, interesting secrets, and the like, and you can use the chapters that are posted in the description to skip the parts that you might be interested in. Of course, I don't expect everyone to watch a 1 hour and a half video about Whiterun, so please feel free to jump around. Of course, Whiterun is one of the largest cities in Skyrim, and it's well known throughout the entire Empire because it is the trade capital of Skyrim due to its convenient location surrounding the hold capitals of Skyrim. And of course, the White River, the largest river in Skyrim, passes near Whiterun, hence its name. So without further ado, let's jump into Whiterun. Since we are, like most players, going to Whiterun from Riverwood, we will pass by Honningbrew Meadery first. This is a location just south of Whiterun, and it's one of the largest meaderies within Skyrim. In fact, it's the second largest, and it's a competitor of Blackbriar Meadery. However, after the quest Dampen Spirits, which is a part of the Thieves Guild questline, Honningbrew Meadery will technically no longer be a rival of Blackbriar Meadery. Now, Sabjorn here owns the meadery, and we can obviously buy Honningbrew mead from him, and then we can see the actual, area where they're producing the mead. There is a basement and also an office building. However, we cannot enter those facilities until the quest Dampen Spirits, and we won't be covering that quest in this video, just because that's connected to Riften. However, if we're willing to pick the lock and we go into their bedroom, we can find a very interesting note. This letter to Honningbrew Meadery is from Maven Blackbriar, and basically she wants to make a partnership with Honningbrew to kind of create more of a monopoly on the brewing business, on the mead business. However, it appears that Sabjorn is probably not interested in this venture. Also up here on the second floor, it's pretty easy to steal stuff, and there's also a skill book here that'll increase your alchemy, so it's good to give that a read. And also you can steal some loot, and there's an expert locked door to find some gold, some silver ingots, and stuff like that. So if you want some easy takings, there you go. Now from here I decided to head across this little river, and we can find Chillfurrow Farm. This is a very small wheat farm that is just south of Whiterun, and it's owned by Nazim and all men, and it's occupied by Wilmeth. However, he doesn't really have any notable dialogue within the game. Now, also worth mentioning, inside of the house is a one-handed skill book, The Importance of Wear. However, I decided not to get it just because I didn't want to piss off anyone. And, well, I already had stolen enough from Honningbrew Meadery. Now, over here, we can find Battleborn Farm, right next to Chillfurrow. Of course, as the name implies, this farm is owned by the Battleborn family. And this farm is usually occupied by Gwendolyn, and it's also occupied, or at least worked by, Athlid Battleborn. However, she returns to Whiterun at night. Now we can also find these windmills throughout these farms, which look really beautiful. And if we head west, we can find Pelagia Farm, and here's an encounter I never realized was in the game, but I kind of messed it up. I'll explain why. But basically, when you first approach Pelagia Farm, there is a giant attacking the farm, which will be killed by members of the companions, such as Aela the Huntress, Farkas, and Rhea. However, this giant is actually not as powerful as a normal giant, so the companions will always win. They cannot lose. Now, the reason I kind of messed up is because you can help the companions fight the giant, or you can let them do all the work. I accidentally let them do all the work because I didn't notice the giant was attacking, probably because I was exploring Honningbrew Meadery, which is nearby, and I just didn't notice it because I was focused on the meadery. Anyways, doesn't matter. If you don't help them kill the giant, Aela here will actually kind of criticize you and be like, yo, what were you doing? You just watched us. But then, you can get out of it, and then she'll recommend maybe that you should visit the companions. But here at the farm, we can find the dead body of the giant, which has nothing on it. And there's not a whole lot at this farm, unless we go to a different location first. Then there's actually a hidden treasure chest at this place. But in order to get the treasure chest, we first have to find treasure map 4, which is also located near Whiterun at Redderun's Retreat. This is just north of Whiterun, and it's just a very small cave with a few bandits inside of it. Now, there are numerous Radiant quests that can take place within this old mine. For example, Amren's quest, his miscellaneous quest, where you have to recover his family sword, can take place in here. However, that didn't happen for me. I haven't had any quest in here. So the only reason that I'm here is to kill these bandits like a badass, and also just take some of that delicious ale that is also inside. But our main reason to come here is for that treasure map. And as we enter the final chamber, you will find 2 bandits, the bandit chief, and this guy who is just kind of like maybe the worst bandit of all time. Don't know how he didn't see me. The bandit chief was actually somewhat difficult. He had a ton of health, but using my magic and my mace, we were able to kill him. And then in this chest, we can find treasure map 4. And this treasure map is very reminiscent of Pelagia Farm, and it even shows us that, yes, the farm south of Whiterun. So we now have the map, and the treasure chest will spawn. It will not spawn until you get the treasure map. Also, there's a sneak skill book inside, so make sure you come pick that up. Back at Pelagia Farm, we can find the windmill and the mountain. We can follow this path all the way up, just like on the map, and eventually we're going to find this snowy bush and a chest, and then we have some okay loot. Nothing insane, but I always really like these treasure maps. Now after this, I was just kind of wandering around Whiterun, and I kind of really weird encounter. As I was kind of to the west of Whiterun, I found this vampire just running around. She wasn't hostile to me for some reason, but I just decided to kill her anyways. Don't know what was happening here, but yeah, then I looted her body and had some decent loot, so I just thought I'd point that out. Don't know what was going on, but I thought it was funny. So the big location that I wanted to point out is Loreius Farm. And the reason I wanted to point it out is because if you go here before starting the Dark Brotherhood questline, here it is on the map, just north of Whiterun, there will be a really cool encounter at this farm with Cicero. Of course, Cicero is the jester who's a member of the Dark Brotherhood, and there's, he's kind of a very interesting character. He's actually one of my favorite characters in Skyrim. When I first encountered this, I was very surprised. So you can find him here with a broken down cart that is carrying the Night Mother to Falkreath. If you talk to him, he will tell you that he needs help. However, the owner of the farm, Loreius, who would have thought Loreius Farm is owned by Loreius, is not willing to help him because he thinks Cicero is a little cuckoo over the cuckoo's nest. So Cicero wants us to go talk to Loreius to try and negotiate so that Loreius, who has the tools to help Cicero, will in fact help Cicero. Now, alternatively, you can actually report Cicero to the guards. You can make up some charges and get him in trouble. And this will also deal with his situation for Loreius. He will be getting rid of Cicero, so that'll make him happy, Loreius. But when you go to the Dark Brotherhood, to the Sanctuary in Falkreath, for the first time, Cicero will remember this encounter. If you helped him, he will be very nice to you, and if you turned him over to the guards, well, he will not be so nice to you, quite obviously. But this is a very easy way to get some quick gold early in the game. Cicero will give you anywhere from 250 to 750 gold for helping him out. Now, besides that, there really isn't a whole lot at Loreius Farm. We do have a windmill, and apparently there's a glitch where if a dragon shouts at the windmill will disappear. Read that on the wiki. And inside we can just find Loreius and his wife, and we could steal if we wanted to be even more of dicks, but I decided not to steal from these good farmers, even if Loreius is kind of an asshole. And just south of here is White Watch Tower. This is kind of in between Loreius Farm and Whiterun, and there's a really weird random encounter here that I experienced where bandits try to attack the tower, but they are absolutely destroyed by these guards. But we can then loot the bandits and kind of take whatever they have on them. So hey, it works out well for us. Now, we can't take anything from the tower because it is occupied by the Whiterun guards. So they're obviously using this tower for some kind of defense or protection. So, good for them, but also bad for us because we can't take a whole lot from this place. And then here is the exact location on the world map. Also, while I was here, I had this random encounter where the fugitive runs up to you and tells you to keep this dagger safe. Obviously, I'm sure most players are familiar with this. I decided to help out the fugitive and to keep his dagger. And then after this, if we head just kind of to the northwest of the tower, we can find this hill with these old ruins on top of it. And while I was up here trying to get a scenic shot of Whiterun, because it's absolutely beautiful up here, as you can see, I was interrupted by the hunter who is looking for that fugitive we saw earlier. Also up here, kind of interesting, is this like little small strong box, and we can pick it open, and it had one like mineral inside of it. So interesting that that is up there, but hey, if you want some jewels or something, head on over there and you can get it. And also while I was over here, there was like a lone bandit in this field, and I think he wandered over from the small bandit cave that is underneath Whiterun, and that's exactly where we're headed next. Directly south of Whiterun is this unmarked bandit camp that has some horses and stuff in it, and we can obviously want to kill the bandits because they'll try to kill us, and so we'll take them all out. Now there's a really cool encounter at this like little camp. If you go into the cave and start looting, more bandits will show up and attack you, kind of like a raiding party or something. So I was here just looting, minding my own business, and then I saw a bunch of red dots on my like little radar, or I don't know what it's called, but anyways, and then I killed all of them. And yeah, it was a pretty cool encounter. We can get some gold and lockpicks out of this area, and there's also a pickpocketing skill book. So not bad, not bad. Also unmarked, and it's kind of easy to miss. So just so you know, it is there, pretty kind of cool, tucked away location. After this, we headed over to the Whiterun Stables, but there's really not a whole lot here that we can do besides we can buy a horse. And of course, there is a carriage operated by Bajorlum that can take us to any of the holds within Skyrim, which is quite convenient. I also wanted to point out there's a lot of ruins around the entrance to Whiterun, which to me kind of signifies that Whiterun is not in its like golden age, so to speak, right? It appears that, times might be rough, there's a civil war going on, the dragons are returning, and it appears that Whiterun may have been much more like intimidating or much more fortified maybe 100 or so years ago. But inside we can get a good view of the fortifications, the entrance to Whiterun, and it is more fortified than several of the holds or cities within Skyrim. So we'll give Whiterun credit there, but we can see a lot of these watchtowers are actually made out of wood, and that it appears that they used to be made out of stone, but that has since kind of been, destroyed. Now, as we go into Whiterun, for the first time, this Whiterun guard will stop us, and we either have to pay, like, a bribe, or we can try to persuade him. Now, I got really lucky because my speech is not that high. I was prepared to pay the bribe, but there you can see my speech increased to 22. Also, from up here, we get some really nice views of the southern kind of part of Whiterun. Now, if we go in for the first time, we will see this interesting conversation taking place between Adrianne and Idolaf. And basically, Idolaf here is trying to procure weapons for the Empire. He's trying to place a very large order with Adrianne, but she's not sure she can, keep up with the order because it's so large. And basically, we learn here about the feud between the Grey Manes and the Battleborns. And the first time you talk to Idolaf, he's going to ask you a question. And regardless if you support the Greymanes, the Battleborns, or whatever, when he asks you this, it's in your best interest to select Battleborn, because this will instantly make you friends with the Battleborn family. And this means we can now go to their house and take a lot of their stuff without any repercussions. Also here we have Brenuin, and if you talk to him and you ask him, are you always drunk? He will tell you that there's a bottle of Argonian Ale, and that he wants you to take it. It's in the Bannered Mare, and it is stealing technically, but he will give us a nice reward, especially if you're a new player. So, something you might want to consider. It is stealing, but hey, it is a miscellaneous quest that is easy to miss. Now, like I was talking about, I'm going to head up on to the Battleborn's house to just start taking some of their random stuff. Now, if you're on survival difficulty, this might be much better, because you can take their food and there's no problems with that. and you can take gold or anything like that as long as it's under 50 gold. So here I'm just kind of going around their house, seeing what I can find. There is a two-handed skill book inside, so that's pretty darn good. You can take that even if you're not friends with them. And then we want to open this door. We do have to pick it. That's probably not allowed, but we're hidden, so it's fine. And here we can find a very interesting book. This book details the whereabouts of Thorold Greymane. He is a Nord who was fighting with the Stormcloaks, and he was taken prisoner after a small skirmish with the Empire, and it's later discovered that he is being held captive by the Thalmor, and he's being held captive in Northwatch Keep. There is a quest line to rescue him from Northwatch Keep, missing in action. However, I decided not to complete that quest yet. I figure I'll save it for a more Civil War type video in the future. So as we can see, there are some big differences between the Greymanes and the Battleborns. However, that was not always the case. They used to be very similar families with similar values, but because of the Civil War, these families have been driven to opposite sides of the spectrum. Even their children will be fighting amongst each other. Here we can see the young girl Braith bullying Lars and telling him that if he doesn't give her money, he will, well, beat him up. Man, pretty mean. Anyways, as we go on, eventually we can find Amren, and Amren and his wife here are fighting because Amren's family sword was stolen from him. And his wife doesn't want him to leave to go look for it because their economic situation currently is not so good, and she can't afford to have Amren disappear on some adventure. After listening to this conversation, you can talk to Amren, and you can offer to get his family sword back for him. This will start a miscellaneous quest, and it is a pretty easy quest to do because it's a radiant quest, meaning the sword will kind of be in a random place across Skyrim, random cave or something like that. For me, the location was freaking awesome, so we'll be heading there in a little bit. But before that, there are some more miscellaneous quests that we can find in Whiterun. One here has to do with Ysolda, who is trying to become a merchant, and we can offer to assist her in her quest to become a merchant because she needs a Mammoth Tusk. Now, normally a Mammoth Tusk is very difficult to get. However, you can actually acquire one very easily, well, if you're willing to steal. There is actually a Mammoth Tusk within the Bannered Mare, the tavern that is in Whiterun, that we can steal. But I wasn't going to do that just because I'm already stealing enough from them, I felt, by stealing the Argonian Ale. If you come back here, just make sure you're hidden, and you can take the ale for Brenuin. After that, I went to go find Brenuin, our favorite town drunk, and I gave him the special ale that he wants, and in return, he will give us a potion of vigorous healing. For a new player, such as myself, this is an incredible potion, and is by far more powerful than any other healing potion that I had, so it's a nice little find if you are new to the game, and it's an easy way to get it. Now, after this, I decided to go get Ysolda her Mammoth Tusk, but that would be easier said than done, because that means, well, that I have to fight a mammoth and a couple of giants. Now, obviously, I didn't have to fight the giants, but I decided to go ahead and fight them anyway. Here, I was able to actually kill the mammoth pretty easily, thanks to my follower, but then the giants came running over, and I was a little bit careless in this fight. I took the mammoth tusk there, but I should have saved, and I'm an idiot for not saving. But eventually, I got killed by the frickin' giant. Here is what happened. I've actually never had this death happen to me in Skyrim. Of course, I've seen this on the internet, but my body got launched all the way to the moon, and man, what a good time. This time, I decided to fight the giants first, just using my bow and arrow, backing off, and eventually I was able to kill both of them. And then I decided to take on the mammoth. Mammoth is kind of easy because he's so big and clunky that he gets stuck kind of easily, and it's hard for him to navigate hilly terrain. After that, we discovered Bleak Wind Basin, which is this little giant camp that is just to the west of Whiterun, and here we can find a nice little chest with some good loot inside of it. It is an expert lock, but we were able to get it open, and we could take some of the loot for either our own purpose or for selling later on. And after this, we can take the Mammoth Tusk back to Ysolda, and this will make her very happy. So happy, in fact, that she now becomes a potential marriage partner. Wow, that's really easy to marry someone, just give them a mammoth tusk apparently. However, Ysolda is not finished yet in this video because there is still one more quest related to her, or that she's at least a part of, later in the video towards the end, so we'll talk about that at the end of the video, but for now she's a very happy camper indeed. After this I decided to head on over to Belethor's General Goods, and I just wanted to sell some items real quick, so, I just would point out that he was here, and that he's the general store owner within Whiterun. After this, I had to go find Amren's sword, which was at White River Watch, and I am so happy the game picked this location. Obviously, it's random, but to me, this might be the best location because there's a lot of just storytelling within this cave. Now, along the banks of the river here, we have a fishing area. I just thought it was really peaceful and really cool, and it just adds a lot of environmental storytelling. Obviously, one of these farmers is coming over here to go fishing. There's also a clay deposit across the river from the fishing area. After this, we make our way up the hill with Whiterun in the background. And we have some bandits standing outside, and if we loot this bandit, there's a very interesting note which reads, "Roldif, your little stunts try my patience. I know my uncle has issues, but he is our watchman and you will respect him. No more sneaking in and out, no more games with his ledger or nails on his chair. One more joke and you'll see how funny a day in the cage can be. Hajvar." So we can see here that obviously there's something interesting going on with the watchmen and these bandits, and if we go inside the cave, we will find out what. But for now, outside of the cave, we get some immaculate views of Whiterun, and there's also a novice locked chest that we can open in order to get some gold and stuff like that. But here is Whiterun at sunset, just so freaking beautiful, wow. Anyways, after this, we go inside of the cave, White River Watch, and here we find Ulfr the Blind. So their watchman is blind, and this does not sit well with many of the bandits. Actually, we don't have to kill Ulfr, we just say, yeah, and he believes that we are his nephew. And if we read Ulfr's book, it's just blank. There's nothing inside. So I decided to take it because why not have a blank book in your library? And as you make your way through this cave, you might want to sneak because the bandits will be having conversations that has a lot of storytelling implications.
So you win?
Yeah. We can't have that roomy-eyed fool as our watchman, even if he is Hashmar's uncle. Time we dealt with both of them.
We strike tonight at dusk. Be ready.
So by listening, we can see that there is a lot of discontent within this group of bandits, so much so that they're planning to kill their leader and the blind uncle. Wow. But not before we kill them first. Honestly, Hajvar should be very thankful to us for saving his skin and preventing a mutiny. But as we continue throughout, we will find this chest kind of tucked away underneath this stone ramp, and as we continue in, we'll find another very interesting conversation.
You think it'll work?
Of course not. Dogs I could trade, but a half-starved wolf, not a chance.
Right. Lucky if it doesn't rip our throats out. Is someone there?
Huh? Time to end this little game.
That's the last of them.
So there is a really cool opportunity here to turn this wolf on the bandits. However, the first time I came through, I didn't see the chain, and I tried to attack the wolf, but the arrow actually opened the cage, and I was just shocked, and the wolf attacked me, but I was saved by Raya. Anyways, in of the side of the cage, we can find a potion of healing, and after this, we can now exit the cave, where we will find the bandit leader, Hajvar. And he is kind of a difficult fight, but thanks to my companion, my partner, I was able to kill him pretty quickly, so not too bad. And then we say Raya just coming in and just freaking murdered him off the cliff. Dang, that was brutal. Anyways, before heading on down to loot his body, I decided to come search this chest. We can find Amren's family sword, and after that I decided to head on down and loot Hajvar's body. And the big thing you want here are the Iron Hand Gauntlets, which are a unique set of gauntlets within the game, and also his journal, which reads, "Pickings have been good these past few weeks. Must be because of the war. Lots of merchants and cowards looking for somewhere to curl up and hide from all the fighting. I've told the men to ease the burden on these poor souls by relieving them of all that gold they're carrying. Guard patrols along the road are way up. We can barely set foot outside. Travelers must have complained to the Jarl. It looks like the guard isn't ready to move against us yet, but the pressure is getting to the men. I have Rajir keeping watch with Ulfr now. That should shut them up about our security. Damn that Bolgruff. A mutiny! Among my men, I can hardly believe it. Thank the gods Ulfr heard of it in time. He may be blind, but he's not deaf. I killed Aunjor myself. A couple of the others ran for it, but we hunted them down quick enough. Only Issa and Rajar got away. Good riddance. There's rumors of a dragon attack on Helgen. A dragon! Hardly. More likely just a story made up by some idiot frightened out of his wits by the war. In any case, the guard seems to have pulled back from to the city, so we've been able to run a few decent raids again. One of the merchants has some odd cargo, bunch of pelts and animals, including a wolf. I let the men roast the other animals, but the wolf I saved. Be handy to have a guard dog like that if we could just train him a little. And after reading this journal, we can see that so many things start to come together at White River Watch. Obviously, that wolf from earlier was supposed to be trained like a guard dog, but of course you cannot train a wolf, crazy son of a bitch. And also we see that, well, there was another mutiny just before the one that we witnessed that was about to happen. Very interesting and very amazing environmental storytelling. That's part of what makes Skyrim so great. After that, we just headed back to Amren and gave him back his family's sword, and he will then teach us some skills in one-handed and blocking as a reward. So very kind of him and a very fun Radiant quest within Whiterun. After this, I decided to do the main quest, so we have to go report to the Jarl about the dragon attack on Helgen. As I was approaching Dragon's Reach, I saw these like 5 guards walking down, obviously beginning their shift because it was morning. I don't think I've ever witnessed this before, and I just thought it was really cool. The timing of characters in Skyrim can be really excellent at times, just adding kind of to the realism and coolness of the game. Now here, I've already gone to Bleak Falls Burrow, so if you want to see that video, which I uploaded in my Redwood video, please check it out. But obviously, most of you are probably familiar with the main quest, and there's really not a whole lot I can add. Anyways, we talk to the Jarl. The Jarl sends us to Farengar. Farengar sends us to Bleak Falls Burrow. However, we've already visited the burrows, so we already have the slate that Farengar wants. And after this, we'll go back to the Jarl, and while we're talking to the Jarl, a soldier runs in, and he's like, oh my god, there's a dragon attacking Whiterun, help, help, help. So we run outside, we head on down to this tower, and there is a pretty cool dragon fight, the first real fight of the game, where you fight the dragon between you, the Whiterun guards, and it's a pretty cool introduction to dragons in Skyrim. Of course, in Helgen, Alduin attacks us, but it's not that great because you literally can't die. There is no risk. But here at the Western Watchtower, we can see the destruction caused by the dragon. And as we approach the main tower, there is a very raggedy looking guard. Obviously, this poor lad has literally gone through hell, and he is scared out of his wits, waiting for the dragon to return. We look up to the sky in horror, looking for this beast, and we can finally see it fly from over the tower. But yeah, I really don't know what I can add to this, since pretty much every Skyrim player ever has experienced it. Killing the dragon is pretty easy because there are so many freaking guards here. Most of the time the dragon doesn't even focus on you. And of course, after the dragon dies, you absorb its soul, and all of the guards here are in disbelief, as some of them now believe you are the Dragonborn. And of course, you are in fact the Dragonborn. You're the player character. Can you imagine if you weren't the Dragonborn? Anyways, make sure you loot the dragon because you can get his dragon scales and dragon bones, which are worth a pretty penny. Now after this, there is a really funny kind of encounter because I was just kind of talking to these guards because they're kind of have some fun dialogue about the Dragonborn and legends associated with the Dragonborn. It's a really fun conversation. I'm not going to keep it in the video just because it goes on for a long time, but if you want to witness it yourself, just make sure you stick around and you just listen to the guards talk. Now, while the guards were talking, there were some very interesting characters approaching me from behind.
Strength of your sword on over tales and legends. That was shouting, what you just did. Must be. You really are Dragonborn, then.
Puss! Thuum! He summons the Thuum.
We're here to teach you a lesson.
You're mine!
So yeah, right after I killed the dragon, this hired thug, with all of my new friends surrounding me, thought it'd be a good idea to come up and attack me at this very moment. Now, this thug was hired by Malus Macius because I stole from Honningbrew Meadery, and Malus is actually one of the employees at that meadery. So they are obviously not happy with me. Anyways, after that funny little incident, we return to the Jarl to let him know of our triumph over the dragon. We are so freaking amazing. And he names us Thane of Whiterun. And then we can buy a property within the city, which I promptly do in order to store my items. I bought land in Falkreath, but I have yet to build my house. And after that, I've got Lydia, so I told Raya to go back to Falkreath for the time being, even though she has all of the armor and stuff that I forgot to take. But hey, what does it matter? Lydia is very kind of nostalgic for many players, so for the time being, I decided to have her follow me instead. So after this, I decided to go check out the Breezehome in Whiterun, and in the Breezehome, there is nothing in it yet. Of course, you can buy more interior decorations, but for now, I just want the chest on the second level. Fun fact, originally there was going to be a homeless guy that lives in the Breezehome with you, and he was going to be difficult to get rid of, but this was cut from the final game. Kind of sad, maybe. Kind of sounds funny or interesting, but anyways, I guess I'm also glad there's nobody living with me.
Take a look.
Over here we have Adrianne, who we talked about earlier in the video when she was talking to Idolaf, Battleborn. Anyway, she is one of two blacksmiths within Whiterun. The other one is the Skyforge, which we'll talk more about during the Companions questline. But for now, after completing the dragon part, or killing the dragon, these red guards, or Alakir warriors, will show up in Whiterun, and they say that they're searching for someone. They're searching for another red guard because they need to bring this person back because they've committed crimes. The person they're talking about here is Sadia, and Sadia is now working at the Bannered Mare as kind of like a stewardess. Anyways, once we tell her that people are looking for her, she'll take us upstairs and she'll pull a knife on us and threaten to kill us if we actually turn her in. So obviously this is a very serious situation. After this, we offer to help Sadia, and she says that in order to help her, we have to kill the leader of the Alakir warriors, and in order to find their locations, we need to go talk to one of the warriors who was captured trying to illegally enter Whiterun. So this quest, in my time of need, is very prominent, I think, within Skyrim, so we'll kind of go through it somewhat quickly, since I'm sure many players are familiar with it. But basically, these red guards, these Alakir, are searching for Sadia because she may have or may not have committed crimes. Now, the crime she is accused of is actually quite serious, and we'll talk more about that later in the video. And there is some controversy about what is the best thing to do in this quest, because it's a little bit not so clear as far as what is morally right. Anyways, if we help this prisoner and pay his release, his bail, he will then tell us the location of the leader, and the leader is located in Swindler's Den, which is really far to the west of Whiterun. Now, before going into Swindler's Den, there are 3 unmarked locations near the den of interest. First is this shrine, which has some jewels and minerals and stuff. This is just south of the entrance to Swindler's Den. And there's also a skill book here that'll increase our enchanting skill, so that's pretty good. Here's the location on the map, just south of where Swindler's Den is. Now, if we head over to the west, kind of in line with the shrine, we're going to find this kind of small depression, this small little pond, and there's a saber cat in this pond along with a mammoth skeleton. So make sure you kill the saber cat. Sometimes there might be 2 of them depending on your level. And then over here, don't get caught on the mammoth skull, but come over here and there's a dead bandit who has a skill book on him, Beggar, which will increase our pickpocket skill. So pretty darn good. And he has a few other things of interest possibly. After that, I was attacked by several Thalmor justiciars, and this was kind of a difficult fight. They had a lot of health, but we were able to get rid of them, me and Lydia. and I looted their body to find out why they attacked me, and basically there is this execution order. Somebody really does not feel comfortable with my presence, and obviously the Thalmor are part of the Aldemari Dominion, which might be the topic of the future Elder Scrolls. But for now, anyways, we go to this other shrine, and there was some golden stuff, but really not much else of interest here, but yeah, it's here in case you need it. Now, also nearby, I found Liguet Quinton Scipius. I don't know why he was here or why he's out here, but apparently he's involved with the attack on Whiterun, which we'll talk about during the Civil War video. Anyways, after visiting these 3 unmarked areas, I was ready to dive into Swindler's Den. Now, there is a bandit standing outside, but he is easily killed. And as we enter, we can learn that not all is okay with the bandits and the Alakir.
I'm not sure I like these Alakir warriors hiding out here. They seem like trouble.
Keep it to yourself. They're not paying us to talk. They'll be gone as soon as they've found whoever they're looking for. We'll have all the more coin.
Anyways, after this, we can easily dispatch of these bandits pretty easily. Now, within this room, there is a little Easter egg. This apple is normally on top of the dummy here, and this is a reference to the story of William Tell, who had to shoot an apple off of his son's head. But obviously for me, the apple fell down during the fight. Now, over here on this ledge, there is a chest at the top, kind of hard to see at nighttime, but during the day, it's pretty easy to see. And then as we make our way through the rest of this den, we will just find a lot of bandits. Now, dispatching of the bandits is pretty easy, and of course we can just find loot, as always in Skyrim. There's some gold and other goodies on this table, and stuff like that. Now, in this next area, as you go in, you want to look to your right, because there's a very funny Easter egg, or very amusing scene. This skeleton is buried in hay, and he's trying to reach for his last ale before, I don't know, he dies. I don't know what he's dying of, maybe his lungs are being crushed. But anyways, I found that to be highly amusing. And in this next part, we can find the book Thief, a skill book lying on this bedroll. I've already read it though, so it had no effect for me. And as we continue through the rest of the cave, there isn't a whole lot of interest, and eventually we'll find the leader of the Alakir. Now, he tells us something very interesting. He tells us that Sadia was the person who sold out Tanith to the Aldemari Dominion. And if this is true, then yeah, that is a very serious crime, and I actually might side with the Alakir warriors. However, neither side really presents any evidence, so it's hard to actually choose one side or the other. So I decided to kill all the warriors since I already promised to help Sadia, and I figured, hey, I'm going to help the good people of Whiterun, and she seems innocent enough. Who knows the real story, though? After that, I returned to Sadia to let her know that I killed the leader. And yeah, pretty much that finishes the quest in my time of need. And for that, we'll get 500 gold. Now, after that, I decided to make my way over to the Companions and to start the Companions questline. This is a very long questline that'll take up a good chunk of this video. I honestly thought about making it its own video, but because the Companions almost take place entirely within Whiterun, with a couple of exceptions, I thought I would go ahead and include it in my video. Also, the Companions are very important for Whiterun. And the first time you enter, you will witness this brawl going on in the main hall. Now, the Companions are just a warriors guild of Skyrim. They function similarly to the Fighters Guild chapters in other regions of Tamriel. And while they have no official leader, the elder known as Kodlak Whitemane acts as the Harbinger, who is pretty much the counselor, or pretty much the real leader of the Companions. And here is Kodlak here, and when we talk to him, he is quite friendly to us, but Vilkis over here is not. Kodlak will give us a chance. He says that if we can prove our skills against Vilkis in a little fight, then we will be allowed to join the Companions. So after this, we will go outside with Vilkis, and we have to fight Vilkis. Now, we don't want to kill him, of course, but we just need to prove that we can stand our ground against him in a fight. And I'll be honest, this is actually pretty darn easy. And in the back of my head, I kind of always knew this, that magic's not really used to the Companions, but I didn't really know what would happen if I used magic here, and yeah, they don't approve of it. They don't like me using magic, they want to use sword, and shield, you know, weapons. So after that, we will continue the fight, and I unleash my fury on Vilcus, and it was a really, really easy fight. So, hey, thank you for being an easy fight, and thank you for letting me join the companions. Now, after this, we need to go talk to Erland Greymane, who runs the Skyforge. Now, Skyforge steel is very famous across Skyrim for its durability and strength, and we have to run a small errand for him, giving Aela, who we met earlier at Pelagia Farm, her shield. And after this, Farkas here, who is one of my favorite members of the companions, will show us about and show us to the dormitory or sleeping area within the companions. And after this, we are required to talk to the leaders or the higher ups of the companions in order to get some work. We still kind of have to prove ourselves before moving forward with the companions quest line. And as you can see, this unlocks the trophy or achievement, Take Up Arms. Don't know why I'm unlocking achievements. I guess because this is the remastered version of Skyrim. On the Xbox 360, I had all of the achievements within Skyrim. Anyways, after this, we will be given a Radiant quest where we have to go kill the leader of the Moldering Ruins. Now, this is a Radiant quest, so you could be forced to kill the leader of various locations across Skyrim. Now, this location is just west of Rorikstead, and it is occupied by several vampires. So we'll move in, kill all the vampires. This is kind of a weird Nordic ruin because there's tents on top of it, and there's a trapdoor that actually leads into the Nordic ruin itself, as you can see here. Now, this is a very small ruin. It just opens up into this main chamber. This main chamber is in a very sorry state, and basically we just have to kill the master vampire, and we complete the quest. Also worth noting is there's this large chest kind of in the back, which had some decent loot inside of it. This room was kind of cool looking, but very small. After that, we go back to Farkas and tell him that we finished the quest, and he tells us that Skjor has a quest for us, and now we can start advancing the companion's quest. This quest, Proving Honor, takes us to Dustman's Cairn, and basically in here we are with Farkas, and we're tasked with recovering a fragment of the battle axe, Wuthrad, and basically we have to go here to prove our abilities and to prove our honor. And for me at least, this place really was a pretty big test. Now as you enter, there's an empty room, and Farkas will make a comment saying that it looks like this place was picked over, that somebody's been here. On this middle table is a skill book, but I've already read it, so it had no impact. There are some Draugr as we make our way further in. But as I was saying, this place was actually pretty difficult for me, which I was kind of surprised, and it's a very long dungeon. But eventually we get locked in this cage, and we witness the secret ability of the, at least, council of the companions. They are actually werewolves. So we see Farkas here turn into a werewolf, kill all of the silver hands here, which is kind of a funny thing, because a lot of them just drop dead. They're not even hit by Farkas. But anyways, they just drop dead, and then Farkas frees us from that cage, and he's like, sorry, didn't mean to scare you, but yeah, I'm a werewolf. How, motherfucker. Anyways, after that, in this next section, you can take all of this gold off of this pedestal, but if you take the helmet off of this one, you get Indiana Jonesed, because it just freaking murders you. Anyways, it doesn't murder you, but you get hit by poisoned arrows. Anyways, as we move through here, there are a lot of fights between Draugr and, of course, the Silverblood. Now, there are various locked chests throughout that contain random loot, so do be on the lookout. I'm not going to go too much into depth, but there is a master locked chest in this section that is collapsed in between double doors. After fiddling with the lock for a long time, I was able to open it, and the loot was mediocre at best. These master locks are often not worth the trouble for a low level. Anyways, I kept trying to get through, and more locked chest, more fighting, and as I said, and as my health indicated right there, this place was pretty difficult for me. And I'm glad though, it was a really fun challenge, and me and Farkas had a great time bonding with one another. But places like this have been traversed so many times by so many players because they're a part of an important quest line. So I'm just kind of going to go really fast through a bunch of parts of so that way I'm not wasting anyone's time. Now, there are a few locked doors, however, I don't know if they're really worth it, because inside are just these small closets, and there really isn't anything in these closets, besides like some healing potions and stuff. Here is another locked door. It's only a novice lock, but inside of this closet, there's another healing potion. Just kind of like a really big waste of time. Not a big waste of time, but just felt kind of anticlimactic. Now, towards the end of the dungeon, the final battle I thought was really kind of disappointing. We find the fragments that we've been looking for, and there's of course a word wall and some healing potions on this kind of like table, and we can get the word. But this final battle was really easy after all of the trouble that I went through to get here. These Draugr just slowly pop out of their like coffins, and you just kind of slowly kill them. It takes a long time, kind of boring, but anyways, eventually the final coffin opens up, which is actually the exit, and we can now escape, and we can return to Skjor, who is ready to now induct us to the council. Man, we're moving up through the ranks of the companions ridiculously fast. I wonder how the other ones feel. Anyways, they basically say that they want to show us something, and we have to now go to a secret hidden area underneath Skyforge. There is a door here. Now you can always notice the door, however you cannot enter until this quest. Then Aela will turn into a werewolf, and basically they're like, well, if you want to progress the main story, you have to become a werewolf too, but hey, it actually might be a bit of a curse, and you might kind of, your soul might kind of not go where you want it to go, but hey, it's okay. So we're going to drink the blood. We briefly turn into a werewolf and things are going crazy. The whole city is attacking me. And what I was trying to do here is I went to the entrance and I was trying to kill the Alakir warriors because they were still here. And I was like, why are you guys still here? I killed your leader. So I came down here and unfortunately I was only able to kill one of them because I got like this awesome death animation. But after that my screen went black and I didn't want to kill someone inadvertently by accident. So there's one more Alakir warrior left in Whiterun for whatever reason. After that, we wake up next to Aela, and she's like, hey, you did actually pretty good. Many people died during their first transformation. Man, I'm glad I consented to all of this beforehand. Anyways, we get an achievement for joining the circle of the companions, and basically, Aela tells us that Skjor is ahead of us, attacking the Silverbloods at Gallows Rock. This is directly east of Whiterun, just southwest of Windhelm. Now, Gallows Rock is named for the rope noose, which hangs from a rocky outcrop in the outer courtyard. And the first time that you approach Gallows Rock, there are several enemies which you and Aela have to fight. Now, at Gallows Rock, there's this large central tower, which is actually accessible from the outside. Now, at first glance, it might not appear accessible just because the entrance is in the back, but you can, and there's a locked chest inside of it. And as we enter Gallows Rock, we'll be greeted with all of these werewolf heads that are on pikes. And of course, there are several silver hands here, but this place is actually far easier than our previous location of Dustman's Cairn. And eventually, we'll make our way to this prison area, and inside of here, we can find a lot of loot, obviously. And there's also a lot of werewolves that are locked in their cages. Now, at first I didn't know what would happen if I freed the werewolf, but these werewolves are actually hostile. So the only reason to free them is as follows: to lure them towards more silver hands, and then force the werewolf to fight the silver hands while you do nothing but loot. This was a pretty effective strategy for me. I lured the werewolf to the silver hands, I went back up, killed this silver hand, looted a bit, came back, and they were both almost dead, so a very effective strategy, and then all of a sudden this very funny scene happened.
You remind me of my cousin.
Racist son of a bitch. Now, I don't know if it's because my character is a Khajiit, or if it's just random dialogue that is generated, but either way, I thought it was pretty funny. Now, in this room, we can find a one-handed skill book, so make sure you pick that up. And as we progress further through the dungeon, we'll of course find more silver hands, and eventually there is a locked door before progressing further. And if we pick the locked door, we will find a room with some health potions and also a chest, coin purse, stuff like that. So make sure you take a look inside because this room is actually pretty good, unlike the locked rooms within Dustman's Cairn. There's also a smithing skill book on this table over here, so make sure you pick it up. And then we enter the final room, where we find Sjorn was killed, which is very unfortunate, but kill all of these silver hands, including their leader, and this will pretty much complete the quest. And yeah, Sjorn is dead. He was killed by the silver hands, and it's very, very unfortunate. Talk to Aela, and she'll say that she'll stick around to kind of clean up the mess and to bring back Sjorn's body back to Whiterun. Aela will take care of all of that. She is freaking awesome. Now, before you leave, make sure you loot the chest located within this room, as it has some pretty decent loot, and also make sure to loot Sjorn's body, because he has wolf armor, which is kind of a unique set of armor within the game, and you want to pick it up before, well, he is cremated. And then, as we head back to Whiterun, we'll find a dead Akir warrior just lying in the street from the time we were a werewolf, and the companions will talk about Sjorn's death. And after waiting a few days, we can find Aela back at the companions' longhouse, and she will give us our next assignment. And from here, you and Aela pretty much engage on a quest of vengeance against the Silverhands, for better or for worse. And as I was leaving, I found Amren seeking to this dead body of the dead Akir warrior. I just thought it was very funny. Now, our next location is Orotheim, located just southwest of Morthal and west of Whiterun. Now, when I was approaching the location, I actually got trapped in this waterfall, and no matter what I did, I was stuck, so I had to actually fast travel and then make my way back to Orotheim, which is pretty far west, again, next to Morthal, and outside we can find all of these skeletons and stuff like that. Now, inside we will find a lot of silver hands, of course, obviously, so we have to kill them, and just sneaking around makes this place pretty freaking easy. There's really no special dialogue between the silver hands within this area, so just kill all of them. Sneaking was very effective, and then make sure to loot around, find things like potions, coin purses, and the such, and then you can find the leader. For me, he was actually kind of difficult to kill. He actually took out Lydia, but not before he lost most of his health, and then I was able to finish him with an arrow to the face. And on his dead body, we can find a bandit's journal, which reads, "Damn those giants. Just one mammoth would feed us for a month, but they herd them around like prized cattle, never taking an eye off them. We've hunted this area dry. Unless we get a kill soon, we will have to find somewhere else to camp." So obviously, these bandits have been in a bit of a struggle here at Orotheim, and we can see this at the journal because they're running low on food, and they are failing to kill a mammoth because they're too freaking afraid of giants. What bitches, because I killed 2 giants, and I'm a low level. Anyways, after this, we can find a skill book, which will increase our one-handed skill, so pretty darn good. And there's also some chest and some loot. There was a grand soul gem, pretty darn good, and then an apprenticed locked chest underneath the staircase that's kind of easy to miss, so be a bit careful as you come through. And then we can find this chest, which has fragments of Wuthrod on inside of it. And then we can pull this chain, which lets us out of the place early. As I exited, there was an absolutely beautiful aurora, and there's a waterfall next to the entrance. And if you come down to the bottom of the waterfall, we can find this dead skeleton and a chest next to it, which is a novice locked, which just contains random loot, so make sure you pick that up as you leave. We return back to Aela, and she congratulates us on our success, and she gives us another task to go take out more silver hands as vengeance. This time, it is just east of Whiterun. This time located at Lost Knife Hideout. This cave is freaking awesome. It is so freaking beautiful, and it's a really great place to find some loot and some cool scenes. Now, as you approach, you will find this little pond with a small waterfall leading into the pond, and we will find the entrance to the cave. Now, this cave is no small area. As you enter, you'll find this small creek leading towards the cave, not leading out, and we will find a lone bandit next to a fire. We will kill said bandit, and then there's another bandit kind of hidden behind the wall here, and after killing that bandit, thank you, Lydia, we can then loot their bodies to find some gold and other goodies as such. Now, on one of their bodies will be the Lost Knife Cave Cage Key. You want to make sure you pick that up because that'll be very helpful later in the quest. Now, as we continue through the cave, we will find that it empties into this large lake, this large cavern, and there are some bandits in the middle area, so we kind of snipe them with our bow, which makes life a lot easier because they are obviously very blind. They cannot see because they don't detect us until the very last minute. Thank you, Lydia, for all your help. And then this silver hand, I don't know what he was doing, but he was failing. Now, from this middle area, we can actually see up towards the ending section of the cave where you exit and you kind of get a quick escape, as is typical in Bethesda games. Now, on this table in the middle, we can find a two-handed skill book, so pretty darn good. Make sure you pick that up, along with a couple of arrows, and then we can snipe this silver hand off in the distance pretty freaking easy. And from down here, then, we can try and snipe some of the silver hands above us, which was actually incredibly fun for me, and also kind of funny because they just kind of run around like scared rats. But as we progress further into the cave, make sure you are careful of this small trap. There is a tripwire, which will trigger all of these boulders falling from above. I went ahead and triggered it just to make sure it was cleared. And as we make our way up, there are some bandits, which we can easily kill if we are sneaking and just snipe them with an arrow. This bandit is like, what the fuck is going on? And then, well, peace out, my homie. Well, kind of, but it took 2 arrows to kill him. But either way, we were able to kill him. And from here, we can get some very beautiful views of that large cavern, which I was mentioning earlier. And we continue our way through this cave. Now, underneath this table, there is a chest, so make sure you loot that. And as we enter the final or real portion of Lost Knife Hideout, there is a very interesting conversation.
I've got a bad feeling about this.
Looks like the boss is at it again.
Why? What's he doing now?
He's on one of his drunk rants again. Except this time he's challenging everyone to a duel over in the hole. We've got him locked in there now, but he's still challenging anyone that looks crooked at him.
Someone should let that cat loose. That'd shut him up real quick.
Hey, don't say that too loud. You don't want it getting back to him.
So we learn that the leader of the bandits, or Silverhands in here, is actually drunk at the moment, and that he is going crazy in some fighting arena. We take out these bandits pretty easily, and then make our way further into the cave. Obviously, this is very useful information, because their leader is a bit of a psycho, bit of a killer. Now, in this collapsed portion of the cave, we can find some gold, along with a skeleton, and then as we make our way to the final area, we find a very large fighting arena. But before that, we find this very beautiful waterfall. Be careful not to fall into it, otherwise, well, you're kind of SOL. But we find this very large fighting arena. Now, immediately, I was surprised to see that there is a saber cat, which we can release using that key we picked up at the beginning of the cave. So that is why the cave is useful, because it allows us to access the fight arena very easily. So I ran down, opened the cage to let the saber tiger out, and to see what kind of damage he could inflict. And he did inflict a lot of damage, however there were so many enemies that he died kind of quickly. Then I took out the stragglers. Then I targeted the leader of this area, the Silverhand leader, and he was pretty easy to kill. He succumbed to his wounds, and then I laid one final arrow in order to kill him. And this ends this section of the quest, so we are now finished. We can loot his body for some gold and other goodies, and then we will return to Aela and let her know of our success. After this, she'll let us know that Kodlak is looking for us, and that he has a task for us. As we go into the bottom section of the Companion's Longhouse, we find a very scary scene indeed, as we find this lady just staring right at us as we enter the underground. Oh my fucking god, that is freaking terrifying. Anyways, we'll go talk to Kodlak, who has a task for us, and he warns us about the path of vengeance. He asks us to sit down, and he explains to us that the werewolf, or the ability to be a werewolf, is not as much of a blessing as it is a curse. Kodlak explains that he is haunted by the thought of joining Hircine in the afterlife. As a true Nord, he wishes to go to Sovngarde. Now, Hircine is like the god of hunting, and basically if you become a werewolf or choose this path, it eats away at your soul, and you are forced to hunt with Hircine in the afterlife, and he cannot go to Sovngarde as he wishes. So, he wants us to travel to Glenmoir, which is in Falkreath, just northwest of Falkreath, and he wants us to hunt down some Glenmoir witches, get their heads, which apparently can help cure us of our lycanthropy. So after this, we will make our way to Glenmoiril Cavern, which is just west, kind of northwest of Falkreath. And as I was making my way here, I found this kind of unmarked destroyed tower. Don't really know what was going on here or why it is destroyed. It's left up to the player to imagine. However, inside we can find a dead elk along with some skulls and the like. So obviously something tragic happened here. Here is the location in case you want to experience or visit yourself. Now, as we visit Glenmoiril Cavern, it is a very kind of cool atmosphere as we go in. Sorry, Coven, not Cavern, Coven. Anyways, as we go in, we will find that there are several witches inside. Now, the quest only requires us to kill one. However, there are several other witches which are optional, so I decided to kill all of the witches and to take all of their heads. Now, the first witch, for whatever reason, provided the most difficult battle for me, and after this cave kind of breaks off into 5 different sections, so you just kind of follow the narrow passages to the different sections of the cave. Now, of course, you'll have to visit here if you do the Companion's quest line. However, the other witches are just optional. After we kill the first witch and take her head, we are requested to go back to Codlock. However, we can continue our path, and if we head to the northern area of the cave, we will obviously find a witch, which we will promptly kill pretty easily. Now, also in this portion of the cave, we can find a skill book next to an enchanting table. There's her head. We take it because we want it. Also, she had a Daedra heart on her. Pretty good. Anyways, next to the enchanting table, we can find a skill book, which will increase our enchanting skill. So make sure you grab that, and I already found it, so it didn't help me out so much, but it is there in case you need it. Now, I'll go really quickly through the rest of the cave as we kill all of these witches, because, well, there's not much of interest until we get to the northwestern part, or northwestern area of the cave. We kill this witch, and if we go towards her tent, towards the back, we can find another skill book. This time it increases our destruction magic, which is pretty good. I'm kind of wanting to increase my destruction magic because I'm relying on it a lot. Also, there's a chest in this area with a flawed Vara stone and some gold. When we return back to Whiterun, we can see that the Silver Hands have attacked the companions. Aela stands there, and the companions ask us where have we been, Vilkas specifically, and we say, hey, we were doing a task for our good lad, Codlack, but we find out very quickly and very sadly that Codlack is dead. After this, Vilkas will task us with striking at the heart of the Silver Hands, and we have to travel to the southeast of Dawnstar to Driftshade Refuge. Now, along my way here, I found this kind of abandoned or unmarked shrine of Debilla, and there is a skill book here, so make sure you pick it up. There's also some ingredients and other loot here, so make sure you grab all of that on your way to Driftshade Refuge. Now, as we reach the fortress, there is a freaking silver hand up here, which I pierced in this epic cinematic, killing him, allowing me and Vilkas to infiltrate their fortress. Pretty easy, though, actually, to get inside of Driftshade Refuge, considering it is the home of the Silver Hands. Now, a really fun fact about this place is this is one of the only locations throughout Skyrim where you can find a pre-cooked mammoth steak, obviously in the kitchen, so make sure you pick that up on your way through. But besides that, it's a pretty standard dungeon. Now, apparently, this door here can be opened by the Silver Hands on the other side if you make a lot of noise. I tried shooting the door, I tried shouting, however the door was never opened, but I can understand why that might be possible, because the table where the Silver Hands sit at the other side is actually quite close to the door, but I couldn't make it happen. Perhaps if I had a louder shout, it might be possible, so maybe you can give it a try, and obviously that makes the dungeon a lot shorter. Now, throughout the dungeon, we have a lot of locked chests, like so, which has random loot inside. Eventually, you'll find this locked door, and if you open it up, you'll find a kind of like bedroom for the Silver Hands. And this bandit was just waking up, and then I shot her in the face. That's very unfortunate for her. But there's a bunch of loot in here, like some steel ingots, and some potions, and the like. And also, this bandit died in a very kind of awkward pose. But yeah, we can loot her dead body and take some goodies off of her. And as we make our way further, there are just more silver hands. Eventually you come to this room with some bars blocking the next part or portion of the dungeon. So make sure you kill the silver hands, and then there are a lot of chests and loot within this area of the dungeon. So make sure you look around and grab whatever might be useful for you, like I did, and then there is a small chain next to the door which will open these bars, and then we can progress to the cellars of this dungeon. Now it appears that maybe Driftshade Refuge used to be some kind of meadery or brewery, because down here we have all of these barrels, but it's not really explained what this place used to be. It has the layout of a fort, but the cellar of like a brewery, so who knows what they were making down here, but now it appears just to be the refuge for, well, the silver hands. Now as we make our way through this final portion, there's just a lot of enemies to fight. We enter this room with like a large barrel. It looks again like a brewery of some kind. Who knows, maybe they're just brewing ale or some kind of mead. But in here we can find a skill book, which will increase our light armor skill, which is, pretty good, along with some potions. So make sure you pick that up. And then eventually the dungeon kind of ends and we enter this kind of like natural cave portion where we have to kill these silver hands. And there's also a werewolf inside this cage and a horse in this cage. I killed the werewolf because I knew he was hostile, so just kind of farming some XP there. And then we enter this like torture room, which is pretty bloody and terrible. And then we approach the final section of the dungeon. There is that table I mentioned very early on for this place, and we can pretty much just snipe all of the silver hands pretty easily. I shouted at this last guy to kind of stun him, and then we were able to take him out pretty easily. There he's encumbered, and then one last arrow to the back. Poor lad. Then we can find the fragments of Wuthrad, and along with a skill book on the table, which will increase our one-handed skill by 1, so pretty good. Make sure you pick that up. And then we can head on over to the other side of the room as Vilkas just stares at me with the sword in hand. And over here we can find another skill book, Warrior, which will increase your block skill, but I've already found it, so it's really no use to me. After that, just make sure you loot around, get some of the coin purses, and there's also a large chest in here, which had a Dwarven Bow of Despair, and I thought this would be a blessing, but it was actually a curse anyways. After that, we've cleared the dungeon, we can now leave, and we can return for Kodlak's funeral. Very somber scene, very sad, yada yada yada, we'll go through it. Afterwards, Mr. Greymane here will talk to us and say that he needs one more piece of Wuthrad, which was kept in Kodlak's like personal bedroom, and if we return it, he can like forge Wuthrad for us. Also here is Kodlak's journal, and I won't read the whole journal. I recommend going through it though if you haven't already, because it's pretty sad. Basically, he talks about his fear of death, dying as a werewolf, and his fear of serving Hircine and not being able to go to Sovngrad. So obviously though, he did die, so his fear became a reality, but there still might be hope for him yet. So after getting the piece, we return to Erlen Greymane, and we give him the final fragment, and then he tells us that our shield siblings have returned to the underneath secret room, the Underforge. Also worth mentioning, there's a skill book here which will increase your smithing. Make sure you pick it up regardless if you're part of the companions or not. Anyways, back to the Underforge, we will go down and we find out that there still might be hope for Kodlak. There is one last place where he might be able to rest, and we might be able to find his spirit there, and we might be able to cure him of his lycanthropy. So after this, we are instructed to go to Yskamor's tomb, where he wanted to meet Yskamor. So all of the companions, at least the council or the circle, will make their way over to Yskamor's tomb. So after a short carriage ride over to Winterhold, Yskamor's tomb is right next to the College of Winterhold. So make your way over to Winterhold, and you can come on down and find Yskamor's tomb. Upon entering, Vilkas will talk to us and tell us that we now have to fight the past members of the companions in order to reach Kodlak. And this is a pretty fun area, except, as I mentioned earlier, I grabbed that damn dwarven bow, which makes enemies run away from you. And the reason that this bow was an issue is it makes lower leveled enemies run away from you, which sounds great on paper, but it turns out that these ghosts actually turn like more ghostly, or they turn kind of invisible, and then they run away from you further into the dungeon, and then they all pile up and attack you at once. So this bow was more of a curse than a blessing. As you can see here, I was able to attack the ghost. There's a sneak attack, but whenever I attacked them, they just kind of turned invisible and then ran away from us, which was kind of making the fights more difficult. However, in this playthrough, I want to run more of a magic and archery kind of run. I've really never done that before. I've always relied on my sword or sword and shield. So this time we're doing a more ranged kind of approach to Skyrim. But this bow kind of, well, fucked me over. Either way, we were able to make our way through. Having the companions aid you throughout the dungeon certainly helps out a lot. And there's several rooms where you have to fight these companion ghosts. But for the most part, it wasn't too difficult, but I did encounter a few sticky situations just because of this darn bow. The ghosts would kind of compile in one area and then all of a sudden attack all at once, which would deal a lot of damage. Now, as you progress throughout the dungeon, eventually you'll find this giant frostbite spider. And in this part of the dungeon, there is some interesting loot, so we'll slow down the speed and slow down the pace a bit so we can show it off. Now, there is, of course, a locked chest in here, as there is always locked chests throughout dungeons in Skyrim, with some random loot inside. Now, in the next area, we can find a table. Not a table, really, it's just a coffin. But on this coffin, we can find some ingredients for alchemy, which is a pretty good find. Here you can see it. So make sure you check it out. It's kind of a random spawn, so just kind of see what you get. And then we just have a lot of companion ghosts to fight in this area, so make sure you take them out. And here you can see my health was starting to get a bit low, and that ghost just ran away from me. This ghost was also running away from me, but yeah, we killed him as he was trying to run away. That son of a bitch. But once we enter this final iron door, we will finally come into the last room of the dungeon. And in this room, there is like this small, like little pedestal. And this is where we can summon our wolf spirit. And we can talk to Kodlak's spirit, who is right here, as you can see, obviously. And then we can use those witches' heads, which we decapitated earlier, throw them into this like eternal flame. And this will summon the wolf spirit of the person that, well, wants to be cured. So here we do it for Kodlak. His wolf spirit comes out, and then me and Aela kill the wolf spirit. Now, this is actually a pretty easy fight. It just has a ton of health. It focused on Aela for most of the fight, and then I just shot the rest of it with arrows. After this, Kodlak is cured, and now he can move on to the afterlife to Sovngarde. So, well, good for him. And after this, he will name you Harbinger of the Companions. So, after like 3 days, now I am the leader of the Companions, muhaha. And Aela will now acknowledge that you are now, well, her leader. So, good for you. And I also, too, wish to be cured of, well, being a werewolf. I don't really want to be serving Hircine. So, I summon my own spirit, and then me and Aela kill it. Much in the same way as Kodlak's. Pretty freaking easy. After that, we are pretty much finished in here. However, you might have to return, as some of the companions also wish to be cured of, well, their ability to turn into a wolverine. Now, do be careful. I almost missed this chest as you exit, because you can get the shield of Ysgramor. Make sure you pick that up. There's also some good loot inside. And then we can leave. And basically, all of the companions will return to Whiterun. So after all of that commotion, I am now the leader of the companions. It was quite the journey. Even the guards of Whiterun now acknowledge my greatness as the harbinger of the companions. So after that epic adventure, I think it's time to head on down to the Bannered Mare and get myself a nice drink of mead. I think I deserve it. And here at the Bannered Mare, we find a very nice, wholesome gentleman by the name of Sam. And Sam here will challenge us to a drinking contest. Of course, me being a very, well, distinguished and amazing warrior, a very honored otter, I have to accept Sam's dear challenge. And I am determined to beat Mr. Sam. So me and Sam have a bit of a drink off, And I will definitely beat this, well, plebeian, for lack of a better term. We begin the drinking contest, and, well, it's pretty easy at first.
And how about you? So says you. I think I've hit my limit on these things. Tell you what, one more and you win the contest. Wow, you've really done it. The staff
This
is
a local
yours.
favorite and one of the first songs I ever learned. Ragnar the Red. Oh, there once was a hero.
You know,
named
you're a
Ragnar,
fun person to drink with. I know this great little place where the wine flows like water. We should head there. Hey, you don't look so good.
Wake up. That's right. It's time to wake up, you drunken blasphemer.
After this drinking contest with Sam, it starts the quest, A Night to Remember, which is basically Skyrim's version of The Hangover, if you've ever seen that movie. Now, it is worth noting, Sam will appear in any town that you are closest to upon reaching level 14, so he can appear in any of Skyrim's holds. For me, it just happened to be Whiterun, and I decided to put in this video because this is one of my favorite quests in the game. After a very incredible night out with Sam, we appear in Morthal at the, well, temple. And here, Sena will criticize us for being a drunkard and a blasphemer. But we can quickly earn her sympathy by picking up all of our items, which we dropped in there, and then she'll give us a hint to head down onto Rorikstead. And here we can find Ennis. And Ennis is quite upset with us because apparently me and Sam stole his lovely goat and sold his goat to a giant. And so now he wants us to either, well, kind of like give him compensation, or to go rescue his goat from the giant, or you can try to intimidate him, which I failed to do. So I headed on over to the giant in order to rescue this poor little goat, which apparently I stole, and apparently I sold it to a giant for, well, who knows what, perhaps the giant's toe, gauging by what is in my inventory. Here you can see it on the mini-map, we made our way over. There was also a dragon just kind of taunting me from the sky, but he never landed. And then he just flew away, so, you know, whatever. But then we can find the giant whose name is Grok. Well, you know, maybe like Twitter? I don't know. But hopefully Elon Musk is not too angry about this giant being named Grok. And we kill Mr. Grok, loot his body, we rescue the goat, and then we head back over to Ennis, returning his goat, and then he'll tell us that apparently we were going to get married, and that we should head on over to Whiterun and talk to Ysolda, who we gave the Mammoth Tusk to earlier, because apparently we bought a wedding ring from him for our supposed marriage. So just to clarify everything so far, we started drinking with Sam. We then ended up in Morthal, freaking destroying the temple there. We then found out we stole a goat to sell to a giant named Grok. And then we find out we were apparently supposed to get married, and that we bought or took this ring from Ysolda. If we go to Ysolda, she was like, you owe me a ton of money, and apparently we owe her 2,000 gold. And she tells us that, hey, you either going to give me the gold, or you're going to give me the ring. Now, you can attempt to persuade her for more information, kind of pulling on the heartstrings. For me, that was unsuccessful, and I don't want to be a dick completely. So she tells us that we should go to Witchmist Grove, which is just south of Windhelm. So I'm determined to get this ring back, so I decide to just go ahead and go get the ring. My persuasion, as you can see here, failed. So I have to go confront this new bride-to-be. And this is a very funny interaction that I actually kind of forgot about. So we'll head on over to Witchmist Grove.
Darling, I've been waiting for you to return to consummate our love. What? You want it for that hussy Esmeralda with the dark feathers, don't you? I won't let her have you.
So here we can find a Hograven named Moira, And Moira is, well, not very happy with us because, well, yeah, we don't want to get married. Anyways, we can take the wedding ring off of her dead body. And if we look inside of her house, we just find a very disturbing scene with various, like, skeletons and the like strewn about. But for the most part, there's really nothing at that location, well, besides Moira and the wedding ring. So we'll return to Ysolda, and we'll give her the wedding ring. And she'll then tell us that, well, our huge ceremony was supposed to be at Morvanskr. Morvanskr? Something like that. Anyways, Morvanskr is like a fortress that is just south of Windhelm, and apparently our ceremony was supposed to be at this location, so we'll head on over to Morvanskr. And there was a very funny interaction that took place here. So as I approached the fortress, there were several, like, mages that occupied this place. And I was trying to sneak up and attack them. And as you can see, this apprentice conjurer set off the traps in this hallway. This led to a chain reaction of his fellow friends and comrades running down the same hallway, being killed by these streams of fire that were activated by the trap here. So I just thought it was really funny and really humorous. They just kept coming and they don't stop coming. And this guy fell on the, like, trigger, the pressure plate for the trap. So I moved his body off, and slowly the flames stopped. After that, we could kind of look around, and we find a very giant fortress with various loot. But for the most part, at least on the exterior, there isn't anything special or anything really particular to note. But as we enter, make sure you are sneaking in order to encounter a pretty interesting conversation.
You work the forge.
Why do they need me to do this? We use magic, weapons. I swear, they're making me do this for a laugh. At least I'm not dealing with prisoners down below.
Yeah, I don't know how I feel about what goes on down there.
I bet Naris gets a kick out of it. Nasty fella he is.
You'd better quiet down before you end up there. Then I'd have to work the forge.
So we can learn that for some reason this mage is working a forge. Who knows what he is making or why, but obviously he's not happy about his job. And then we can kill his, well, comrade here. Now, worth noting, in this room there is a skill book next to the forge, which will increase our smithing skill on this table. So make sure you pick it on up, and then we can head downstairs. Downstairs we will find a group of mages that, once again, well, we have to kill. Now, the storm mage down here actually gave me quite a bit of trouble. I'm sure these mages are just level to the player's characters, but do be careful because, well, he was pretty tough. But I kind of just ended up charging him with my mace, and that was enough to, well, get rid of him. But using my weapons from far away was not so effective because he was also trying to kill me from far away. After this, we will be tasked with heading up the stairs next to us. Now, make sure you loot this room before you go up here if you're doing the quest, because otherwise you'll be teleported out of this room and you'll be teleported back to the city where you found Sam. So since I found Sam in Whiterun, I'll be teleported back to Whiterun after completing the quest. Now, there are a couple of chests inside of this, like, kind of hidden closet, so make sure you go in, make sure you lockpick, and make sure you take any loot that is of interest to you. After that, we'll head up the staircase. There is a large chest to the left. I didn't loot it because I forgot, I'm stupid. But a portal will open up and we can step into the portal and we'll be teleported to, well, a very beautiful and gorgeous area. This is the Misty Grove, and as we progress along this path, eventually we will discover a small kind of dinner party taking place. And if we talk to Sam, we quickly learn that he is not Sam, but he is actually the Daedric prince, Sanguine.
You're here. I was beginning to think you might not make it. I thought you might not remember your first trip here. You had a big night. I think you've definitely earned the staff. Oh, the Hagraven feather and so on. You can throw all those out. You see, I really just needed something to encourage you to go out into the world and spread merriment. Yes? I am Sanguine, Daedric Prince of Debauchery. I know. How could I lie to you? Well, how could I trust you until we've shared a few drinks? But it wasn't long before I realized you'd make a more interesting bearer of my not-quite-holy staff than this waste of flesh. Let's be honest here. I don't always think my decisions through. But you're going places. Maybe a little influence from your old Uncle Sanguine could help adjust your course a bit. My pleasure. But I think it's time for you to go. No fun keeping you locked up in here with the staff.
So after this, Sanguine will send us back to Whiterun, and we're now basically his friend. He'll give us Sanguine's Rose, which is a magical staff that will summon a Dremora to fight for us for 60 seconds. A pretty cool weapon that, unlike in Oblivion, the Dremora will always fight for the Dragonborn no matter what. Man, can't a man just get a nice drink and some rest? Anyways, after that very exciting adventure, I decide to talk to Ysolda here and to see what's going on in Whiterun. After asking her several times, we get some very interesting information.
Been hearing some strange tales of the Jarl's children. Say the one's turning wicked, and the others have an ill-favored look to them. Best to keep clear.
So from her, we learn that something weird is going on with Balgruuf's children, the Jarl of Whiterun. So if we head on over to Dragon's Reach, we can then go figure out what exactly is going on. Now, before diving into this quest, the Whispering Door, I first just wanted to mention that Dragon's Reach has some interesting items and some interesting places. Now, of course, the porch here is used in the main quest. It's used to capture a dragon. Now, this porch, though, is very beautiful. Also, you can find guards occasionally practicing their archery skills, but they won't shoot you no matter how hard you try. But from the porch, we can get some very magnificent views of the entire hold of Whiterun and the surrounding area. And I just find it a very peaceful and lovely place to come after a long day of adventuring. But after this, we'll make our way to the Jarl's living quarters in order to progress the quest. However, before doing that, it is worth mentioning that in the quarters here, it is very easy to steal some very useful or valuable items from the Jarl, just because there are all these locked cases, and there's just a couple of guards that are here, so it's easy to stay hidden and easy to steal stuff. And we can even, if you are friends with the Jarl, you can even take stuff that are below 50 coins, like so. Also, there is a skill book here inside the Jarl's office that'll raise your illusion skill, so a pretty good find. And next to the Jarl's bed is an unusual gem, so make sure you pick up that bad boy. But if we talk to the Jarl and ask him about his child, he says yes, his youngest son is indeed a dark child, and that he's, well, very evil and he may not be exactly normal. So after talking to the Jarl about his youngest son, we can then decide to make our way over to the youngest child, and this will begin the quest, the Whispering Door. Now, in order to begin the quest, the Whispering Door, you must be a level 20, and then you just head on over to the Bannered Mare and ask for rumors, and eventually you'll hear the dialogue about the Jarl's children, well, being frickin' evil. After that, we'll go talk to the Jarl's youngest child, and he tells us about the door in the basement that is whispering all kinds of things to him, but appears the door is very intelligent, because everything the door is whispering to him is well accurate. So after this, we ourselves will make our way to the basement to figure out what in the heck is going on. After all, doors are not exactly animate. But as we make our way down, we can find these two older ladies just sitting near the basement. Don't know why they are there, but they're just enjoying some bread. And then we can find the Whispering Door with blood all over it, which is pretty intimidating if I do say so myself. But after talking to the door for a while, we find out that the door is very excited to meet us because, well, we are much more powerful than the youngest child of the Jarl. And basically, the door will tell us that we need to get inside. In order to get inside, we must steal the key from either the Jarl or Farengar. But since the Jarl is sleeping, it's probably the easiest to just steal the key from him, so that is what we'll do. So we'll head on over to the Jarl's living quarters once again and talk to the youngest child. At this point, we don't know where the key is, but upon talking to the youngest child, Neclear, for a little bit, he'll tell us that the key is on his father, or is on Farengar. Now, I really like Farengar. He's actually a pretty chill dude, so I don't really want to steal from him and get him in trouble. And like I said, the Jarl is sleeping, so let's go take the key from the Jarl. So after talking to the youngest child, we'll make our way over to the Jarl's bedroom, and we have, well, a more than 50% chance to steal the key. So I like those odds a lot. We take our chances, and, well, it is a success. This coin flip, though, only 59%. After that, we'll head back on to the Whispering Door, and we will open it. After this, we learn that, well, the Whispering Door is actually the Daedric prince, Mephala. And this blade inside is, well, very scary, because if you kill people that trust you with it, the blade gets more powerful. So if you kill people that you are friends with, or if you kill companions, the blade will gradually get more powerful. And this obviously turns people, well, crazy throughout the history of Tamriel. Now the blade is in our hands, so we'll see what we do with it. But it is a very useful weapon to have during the Dark Brotherhood questline, because it might involve killing people that are, well, your friend or people that trust you. And also worth noting, next to the blade is this book, Admonition Against Ebony, which is just a dire warning against the use of the ebony blade, and it pretty much tells that if anybody is reading this that isn't the Jarl or Farengar, that they should just leave the blade behind, because this blade is incredibly dangerous. However, we do not take this warning to heart, and we will indeed take this blade for use later in our playthrough. But after picking up the blade, that will finish the quest, the Whispering Door. So you can do whatever you want with the blade. You can either just toss it in your storage chest and it'll be lost to time, or you can use it, turning it into a very powerful, yet kind of very sad and tragic weapon. Alright everyone, I hope you all enjoyed this episode of Unexplored Skyrim, Whiterun. This was a very special episode and by far my longest episode of Unexplored ever. Previously, my longest episode was about Randall Clark, who is a very famous survivor in Fallout New Vegas. But this video was a little bit longer, about twice as long, but I had a ton of fun making this video, and I hope you enjoyed watching it. Thank you so much for watching, or just selecting parts that you thought were interesting. I hope you learned something new about Whiterun. Obviously, I could not cover everything there is in Whiterun, but I felt like this is a very good video that covers Whiterun in depth. So I hope you enjoyed it, I hope you learned something, and at the very least, I hope you're able to have some nostalgic memories about Whiterun. Alright guys, let me know what you thought of this video, of this long form video, in the comments section below. If you have any recommendations for future ideas or future videos, please place them in the comments section below. And, as always, until next time.
I'm sure you know well.